Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. This is actually the second time I've done this, and it's one of those things that sort of came up spontaneously. I do live streams on my other channel, which is called Cotonia Podcast, and I've decided that in honor of my new website that has come up for this half of what I do on transition life coaching, it would be good to have these live streams and try to stick to about 30 minutes. The other ones tend to be an hour or a little longer. Every day, just to talk about certain things, to do a morning reading for people who are interested in having that, and just to talk about some stuff that's come up, also to answer questions that come up from people, whether they do that through Instagram or other places about what I'm doing with my coaching practice, or maybe just talking about different elements of transition. I'm going to be creating a little promotional thing for it today. I'm going to be creating probably just an image or a graphic, but I will have that for future live streams, or I will probably put it up in other places to promote it both here and on YouTube, because I have not done it yet, but I do need to upload these to YouTube, plus make a couple other videos go live. A lot of you are familiar with the readings that I do on Liminal Tarot, which I do, like I said, 6 signs a week. So I'll do Aries through Virgo one week, and I'll do Libra through Pisces another week. Just because I have so many things going on right now, and I'm definitely looking for more clientele, definitely looking to work with more people, but also realize that in a myriad of world of coaches, a lot of people don't know enough about me, really. So this is really just kind of a morning thing. Now, my morning routine has always been for many years, even when I was working, although it was harder to do when I was working at a 9-to-5 job. Yeah. Is that I would sit here in front of my window, because you can't see it, but I'm looking out my window, and my house overlooks the cemetery. Okay, now some people don't like that. It's actually a really beautiful view. There's mountains, or hills, I guess you could call them. I remember having the hill-mountain argument when I was in Southern California about what's a hill and what's a mountain. But in any case, they're like our hills here in Western New Jersey, and it's an absolutely beautiful view, and certain times of year it's even more spectacular, like it's spring, so now you're starting to see everything that's in flower, and certainly in the fall it's also very beautiful because you start to see the turning of the colors. Now, I happen to be a fan of the fall. I mean, spring is nice. It kills my allergies. Poison ivy is rampant. Fortunately, most of it seems to be gone. I do have a little bit on this finger, which is why, and this is really annoying, but it's literally right here on the side. So anytime I do anything like shuffle cards or even doing other normal stuff, it bothers me. So it's really frustrating to have that. But I do have my coffee every morning, and right now I'm still sticking to ordering my pumpkin spice coffee, because yes, I am one of those people who drinks pumpkin spice year round if I can possibly do it. I mean, I drink regular coffee as well, but I don't know. I'm just a real fan of the more autumnal kind of flavors, the more earthy kind of flavors. So I make sure I have it all the time, and so I find it. That's as much as there's a lot of things to dislike about Amazon. I suppose I am grateful for the fact that I'm able to just order and get my Green Mountain pumpkin spice, and whenever I want to. There's also a really good blend called Fall in Love, which is really, really good. And it's got fall with the leaf on it, pun intended. So, so this is sort of my morning comfort. What I usually start my day by doing is I do, because I have practiced Hinduism, I will always do the morning, the 12 names of Ganesha to kind of remove obstacles for the day. Most people have heard of Ganesha, who is the elephant-headed god that is usually associated with good luck in removing obstacles in Hinduism. He's the son of Shiva and Parvati, and he's usually the one who, before anyone does a puja or a worship practice, you honor Ganesha or Ganapati. You honor him first. So that's why I start the morning with that. And then I usually start with a Gayatri mantra, which I only recite one time, because you usually do that when the sun comes up. Strictly speaking, you're supposed to do these things 3 times a day, but I'm not going to lie to you, I don't remember to do things 3 times a day. By the time I've passed my morning routine, I'm enmeshed in whatever it is I'm doing for the day. So I just say to myself, okay, we make this a morning routine. And then, of course, I do my kind of work to kind of clear my space and my energy. I have a quick thing. I'm going to probably be making a video for it, and I'll be putting it up on my channel to show what I do. For people who are interested, it's not that people have to do what I do, obviously, but for people who don't know what to do and they say, well, I don't have time for a long, complicated morning routine, but I still want to keep my energy good and everything and protect myself from... I never say from negative influences. I only just say from deceptive or harmful influences, because I don't think we necessarily, positive or negative is often subjective, and sometimes something that's an apparent negative may actually be it may be happening for a reason for us. It may be something that feels like an obstacle, but is actually meant to move us away from a direction that might be toxic to us, or might not be, or I suppose I should say, not really right for us. So so we have this, I do this morning routine, and I have this morning ritual that I do, and this is the time, usually if I'm going to do readings, I like to do readings for myself in the morning, so I thought, well, why not bring people in and I can do readings on here for other people as well. And, and I think that's Melissa. I think it looks like you've joined, so good morning. It's good to see you on here. This is just to briefly recap. I'm kind of going through now and doing these morning coffee things where I'm going to talk about certain aspects of transition. I'm going to do a quick morning reading for people and maybe answer questions that people have. So that's the purpose of these, and I'm sort of feeling my way through it because these are totally unscripted, as you may have noticed. I just kind of come on and do that. And good morning. Okay, so the thing I was going to talk about a little bit today, because I've done some readings this week, over the past couple of weeks, for people. That was a question I had on my site, actually, was people said I don't see an option for booking readings with you. And that's because my focus is going to be more on coaching and mentoring rather than readings. Readings may be part of that for people, but it's all going to depend on the person and on their comfort level. Some people don't like readings. Some people are freaked out because they've been raised with this idea that readings are somehow connecting with bad energy or something, which they're not. I use readings in a psychological sense. I use them to, yes, there are people who, of course, want to know things. They want to know, when am I going to get my next job? When am I going to meet my future spouse? When am I going to, people want to know stuff like that. And I get it. I totally get it. And I know, God knows I've asked those kinds of questions myself in the past. But really, as far as transitional work goes, it's more about what patterns are. What patterns are keeping us where we are. Because oftentimes it's not that we can't make a change. Sometimes making that change, it means moving out of our comfort zone to some degree. So the thing that we're used to doing, even if we absolutely hate it, is the thing that we're used to doing. So how do you move past that? How do you do that? And a lot of times what we're drilling down to is not, will I get another job or will I meet someone? And the answer is, of course you will. If that's what you're looking to do, usually what I will see if I do a full reading for somebody is, you totally have the resources to do what it is that you want to do. But oftentimes it's a belief that you have. So for instance, something I've been seeing in a bit of a pattern recently are people who are very, very independent, okay, who are very, who perhaps have been through perhaps very traumatic situations, a lot of issues of betrayal coming up for a lot of different people, including myself, where you realize that there's certain things where you feel panicked or you feel blocked, where there are people who are actually willing to help you, but you feel that, oh no, I can't accept help from anybody. I'm not that kind of a person. I do it all myself. And yeah, it's good to be independent. It's good to not be dependent on somebody, because codependency is obviously an issue. But nonetheless, in your independence, it's also a matter of how do you work with other people. And that's often a lesson that a lot of people are having. It's a particular lesson of mine because those who follow the astrological, my natal chart has a north node in Aquarius, okay, where Pluto is literally right now, and it's in my 8th house. So the 8th house is about joint finances. It's about other people's money. It's opposed to the 2nd house, which is about your personal finance and you doing it all yourself. And at least part of what that house is about, in addition to other aspects of transformation and probably the work that I'm doing now, is the idea that no, you need to be working and collaborating with people, not just trying to manage this all by yourself. Because I'm also hot right now. I'm going to be starting a new school on my Katonia channel, which I'm now currently is referred to as the Interdisciplinary Center for the Study of Feminine Myth, and I've been pulling together professors, PhDs, and so forth who want to also teach in this school and trying to come up with a good model, a good revenue model, trying to crowdsource some of it. Ultimately, it's going to be like a low cost kind of university experience. It's obviously not state accredited, and I may want to stay away from that because I might go there. I have to see how everything pans out. But ideally, it's got to be something where the teachers who are teaching the stuff they're really into, and therefore can really passionately launch in without having to do hours of research, unless they want to. But it's just something where they can do that, and where students can get engaged in things that they're deeply interested in without having to check a box like university education often becomes. So this is a way of doing that and allowing people to study things that they're told aren't going to make them money or whatever, but with the end goal that in each term that the student does a project that's something that they can work with. Well, either writing a piece, it could be, but writing either an academic or creative piece, writing a piece of music, doing a piece of art. It doesn't have to be just writing a paper. So, and then of course bringing in different people to mentor and work with people, and trying to figure out fee structures and all that kind of stuff, and also just kind of developing an initial curriculum. So that's a project, as you can tell, I'm very excited about, and I'm actually going to be putting a lot of work into that over on the Katonia podcast side. But I will probably share updates over here for people who have cross interest. So not to digress into that so much. So when it comes back to the readings and doing readings, one thing that comes up a lot for people is time. So I talked yesterday about being in the gap, and that was the kind of cards that we had that came up in the reading yesterday. And when you're in the gap, something is ended and we are anxious to jump into the new thing. But one thing we don't usually do is give ourselves time to process what's just happened. We need to move into a space where we are able to we need time to a time out. We need a time to relax. A lot of times we're made to feel like, no, you can't do that. You have to jump right from one to the other. And sometimes that's from the frying pan into the fire. You jump from one bad situation to another. Because as part of that transition, which was something I discussed yesterday, is that once we're free of a bad situation, a bad job, or something that's really stressed us out, when we have that time, finally, okay, you don't have to do that anymore. Now you can breathe. We're like, but now I have to worry. I have bills to pay. I have this. And again, that's all legit. That's all legit stuff. But we're so focused on the way that we did things, and, it's kind of, it's almost a type of, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. We look back and we say, oh, but at least that provided stability. At least that provided insurance. At least that provided this and that. And we start, mourning the things that we now liked about the situation that was actually more hateful than something that we liked. Because that was more comfortable. So this is what I mean about moving out of comfort zone. But obviously in connection with this is things that have to do with timing. And when I was doing my morning thing, and I always connect with my guides in the morning, and really the message I got, I said, well, what do I really want to talk about today? And they said, well, you want to talk about intensity, and you want to talk about what was the other one that I had gotten? It was a card called Compromise, and that's exactly what this is. The way in which we have an intensity of energy a lot of times when we're jazzed to do something new. We have this rush of energy, or we may be working on something, or we may be wanting to see the fruits of something right away, or something may have ended, or we may have a loss, and we may say, okay, I'm ready to just get it. But really, jumping straight back in, number one, is not allowing yourself to really heal from it. And if you haven't, then what's going to happen is you're going to start moving into this new thing, and then all of a sudden you're going to get slammed with the old thing again. This is what comes back repeatedly because we haven't really properly dealt with what's gone before, but we feel that we don't have time. And so time was the other thing that I was really kind of prompted to talk about. When you ask me for a reading and people say, well, when is this going to happen? Now, you can ask that question. Typically, the way you ask that question in a reading is to say, like, okay, let's do a reading for the next 6 months. Let's do a reading for the next, or we might name a time frame. However, that doesn't guarantee that that's what it's going to be, because tarot tells you about what's going on in the moment. And you might make decisions that may change that outcome. And also, I have found that when I'm working with spirit, when there's been big things going on, and I've said to them, okay, especially when I'm personally trying to plan for certain transitions, like as people know, I've been wanting to move to England forever, and I will see things that say, yeah, you're coming on a point where this is going to be viable. I mean, the puzzle pieces as to how that's going to happen still haven't all come together, but nonetheless, they're saying, oh yeah, it's going to happen. So if I say, when is it going to happen? Now if I say, for example, is it going to happen, in the next few months? They go, yeah, sure. And then you find that it doesn't, but you have to realize also, when we are talking about time, we are talking about a construct that we use in this dimensional space and this timeline that we're on. And that really what we think of as time doesn't necessarily have the same meaning across different dimensions and in different contexts. So to someone in spirit, you may say, will this happen next week? And they'll say, yeah, but for them a week could be a year. You just don't know. And so it's not always reliable. Like, people use the pendulum and they'll say, well, it said this was going to happen by this time. It's like, yeah, but there's certain things that you just can't predict that easily from that. So it is better not to focus on time, but rather usually the message is needing to stay in the present, which is hard because we function in a causal world, okay, which means that we look at cause and effect. Doing X results in Y. Okay, that's the way we think about things. That's when we talk about scientific law, or we talk about other kinds of things, that we're talking about cause and effect. And so oftentimes we want to look at origin and outcome. We want to say, okay, I'm doing X and I want to see the manifestation in Y. But the problem is things take time to manifest. It doesn't always, sometimes you're lucky and sometimes stuff happens overnight, but things don't happen right away. Not everybody goes viral. Not everybody, it depends on what you're doing and the context of what you're doing. And then there's also a sense of timing that's really outside of what we think of as maybe our own plan, our own schedule, that's why I think, I understand from the perspective of institutions why you have to have a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, but for ourselves, that's not always a good thing to do. That's the thing we're often told to do. That's when a lot of coaching will say, like, well, yes, you have to have your plan and see. And look, sometimes it's good to have a plan to make us feel like we have some level of control, but the reality is underneath is that we don't really have that control. And so, and you have to, and the thing is accepting that life is uncertain and that you don't always have control. And that's the hardest thing for people to deal with, because people want to know that what they're doing is the right thing, that they're not making a mistake. And not realizing that even if you make a mistake, sometimes that's okay. Sometimes the mistake is part of the experience. Sometimes you need to say, oh, gee, well, that doesn't work. And so you change directions. Or it may be a mistake because timing-wise, you were doing something not at the right time, but at a later time, it actually becomes something that is good, that is viable for you, right? So, yeah, so it's not, so there's that whole sense of what we're calling divine timing. And some people don't like the idea of divine timing. I know that I'm this way and that way about terms. I'm this way and that way about terms like divine timing, purpose, destiny, what else? And anything having to do with ascending or ascension, or kind of this idea of rising above or being more spiritual. That, like, I have problems with all of that, because my feeling is, no, you have to really be rooted in here and now. You have to be rooted where you are. That doesn't mean you can't be doing spiritual work, but the thing is, your spiritual work has to be grounded somewhere. It can't be something that is, if some people, I see a lot of these things, or people will send me a lot of videos and stuff about this kind of 5D and moving into the new space and everything. And I'm like, look, there's very clearly transformational shifts going on. In fact, I was talking to an academic friend of mine the other day, and we were noting how a lot of people who do this kind of spiritual work are encountering more what we call thanatological beings or deities, and thanatological meaning death beings. Because it's not because everybody's going to die, it's because, well, I mean, everybody dies one day, but it's more that because we are transforming, we're moving out of some kind of a space. Whether that necessarily means we're all going to be moving into a space of light and abundance and everything being perfect, it's probably going to be another space like our previous spaces that is going to have good things about it and things that are not so good about it, from a perspective of how they affect our lives. So it's better to be grounded in who you are and where you are, rather than seeing how you fit into that collective and what kind of information you're getting about the collective. I feel like the life that we're in right now, what I've kind of gotten is that because we live in an era right now of a lot of fear and anxiety and polarization, and there's a lot of beliefs around that where people are clinging to this or that. People are looking for a messiah, so to speak. People are looking for someone who's going to show them the answer. And the reality is that that's not really the direction we need to be going in. That's the old way. We need to, and really the rebellious thing that we need to do is to kind of go back to enjoying life, to being playful, to living in the moment, to not being worried so much, to not be staring at the bank balance all the time, to not be and to allow ourselves to say, no, you know what? I don't have to go take this job I hate just because, well, that's what I do as a responsible adult. It's like, no, you know what? I can find other ways, and I can still do the responsible adult thing, and I don't necessarily have to do it the old way. So, yeah. So there's a shift that's going on, and there's a shift in the way of thinking. But what I've gotten a lot of times, and this is through a lot of dream work and stuff, is I've had some really, really startling dreams about the way in which. So I feel a pull towards this. yeah, you know what? And you're not alone. This is why I bring it up, because it's coming up for so many people. It's coming up for people I'm reading it. It's coming up in my dream. My dream material is insane. I mean, if I could just sit here and tell you about my dreams, they're crazy. Because there's just a lot of this coming up. And I said, I think the bottom line thing that I've gotten out of it is, first of all, a couple of things. One, trying to come into a right relationship with the masculine, especially as I'm somebody who works a lot with the feminine and the more hidden or shadowy elements of the feminine, and how those two things need to come into balance by trying to get into a proper relationship with the masculine, which a lot of us don't have. Our relationship to the masculine is often very judgy and opinionated, the kind of stuff Carl Jung had talked about. So it's coming into right relationship. Both things, and I don't necessarily mean in balance, because everybody kind of thinks, okay, there's got to be exactly half of this and exactly half of that. No, they've got to kind of flow together and work together. The other thing is to stop living in fear, because living in fear, if you ever watch those paranormal shows where they talk, and I'm skeptical of a lot of these shows, mainly because a lot of them are created by evangelical companies, and they usually have their own purpose and mission in making them. So, but you talk about how, well, they say, oh, well, if you have a demon, you don't want to feed it with fear, right? You've heard that expression before. And similarly speaking, I mean, this is not a demon, and I have a very different idea about what that term means, but if you have when you're talking about that kind of force or that kind of a thing, it's like, okay, you don't want to be, we're often kind of lost and alienated in this anxiety and this fear of, if I change, if I do something different, if I step outside the script, it's going to be a disaster. I'm not going to be able to do it. And the thing is, when you're in the void, the question is, what are you going to be able to do? Okay. So let me pull a few cards for today. I just want to do a couple different things, since we're getting almost to the end of the half an hour. I do have my cartouche deck. I've done this before, but just to show you, I've been reading cartouche, I tell people, for 37 years now, and I do have my original deck, and it's, as you can see, it's not quite in as good a shape, but this is the one I bought in 1987, and I still have it, because I love this deck. And I'm just going to pull a few cards, and then I think I'm going to pull a few Osho Zen cards as well, just to kind of give everybody a flavor of what's going on today and what they need to know. Yeah, it's... Okay, so let's see what I have here. Let's move my coffee cup out of the way. Yeah, okay, so the cards I have are, I'll just show them to you, are Osiris, I have Fire, I have Horus, I have the Sphinx, and I have the Ankh. Okay, so what do these cards mean? Well, basically what we're having here is, I think a lot of people are in a period right now where you are trying to, Osiris is about finding your roots, like finding stability. This could literally be about finding your roots in terms of dealing with family or ancestral stuff. But it can also have to do with the way in which we just, in an era of earthquakes, and it's funny because we've had multiple earthquakes in New Jersey, which is really unusual. Not huge ones, but it's just enough that I can at least 3 different occasions over the last 2 weeks, my whole house is shook. And it's like, wow. So it's a matter of, in a way, finding your footing, finding your grounding, right? But fire indicates, yeah, that's that intensity again, that idea that keeps coming up in a lot of my readings about intensity. And certainly astrologically, Mars is in Aries now, and that is a lot of people who have felt really drained last month, which was an exhausting month, now are like, oh my God, now I'm ready to do everything, and I want to do it all right now. And I'm looking at myself with that, because I have a tendency to overinflate what I'm going to accomplish in a day. And maybe you do the same. But there's the idea of, whoa, we kind of pace things. Now, we have Horus as a factor to be considered. So yeah, back to what I literally said right at the beginning of this. Healing. Healing is a factor here. Taking time out to heal. And for some people, I don't know why, there's been a lot going on around ancestry and roots for people. Like looking at family traumas, looking at family situations, resolving family traumas, or accepting that certain things maybe aren't going to be anything other than what they are and being able to let go of them. Moving into a space of forgiveness for some people, even if that, sometimes feels a bit icky. I mean, the idea is releasing your energy and your drain on energy from dealing with that individual or situation, and just being able to walk away from it and feel that you don't have to pour energy into that anymore. Whatever it is that needs to be resolved, it's obviously different for everybody. Yeah, and Sphinx is about uncovering secrets, it's about digging deep, but it's also about taking time out. Sphinx sometimes says, you're roaring to go, but you may need to just slow down, because I feel like for a lot of people, there's stuff unfolding. I'm seeing like a flower in my head, like there's stuff unfolding. It's opening up. It's unfolding, and so therefore you don't want to grab and pick the flower while it's still in the bud stage. You want to wait until it's it's fully emerged, and then probably you can move into where your happiness is. So for a lot of people, yeah, this is a channel that has to do with transition. This is my coaching has to do with transitions, and so this is about transitioning into that space and finding the fact that even though we may be anxious to move ahead, I think the universe's message right now, for more generally speaking, is slow down. Slow down, take time to integrate what's just happened, and don't necessarily, see the intensity cards at the bottom of the deck here. Don't just necessarily charge first into something, because what you risk doing, if you haven't absorbed the lessons of before, you may just risk doing the same thing over and over again. So I'm just going to do a quick Osho Zen reading too, because I do love this deck, and I do feel like literally just what I'm saying here. Okay, so our first card here is that's interesting. I almost flipped upside down. We have the Past Lives card, which is the Moon card in this deck. And so, yeah, remember what I said about past and ancestry? This could have to do with past lives, although I tend to think of them now more that I've worked with Azrael, like we're more dealing with concurrent lives that kind of happen, and we come into awareness of one or the other at different times, which is kind of hard to digest mentally, but I think there is a part of us that goes to an ancestral space, but I think that generally what we think of as our soul exists in a group, and that it different things kind of blink in and out at different times, and that's really what we're talking about with death. But the Past Lives card, so for me, is about all of those past things, whether they be trauma from other aspects of your soul group, or whether this is family trauma. A lot of that ends up being kind of coded into our DNA. And that's not the spiritual side. That is the literal scientific side, that your stress and stuff can be coded into your DNA, that whatever your family went through traumatically may be part of who you are. It's very, very hard to get rid of that stuff. That's why I don't believe in saying like, oh, well, I'm going to teach you a 3-step method to get rid of everything, because you can't. It's a process. You may go through one thing and you may feel clear. Then it may come up and you got to do it again, and you got to do it again. And each time it may be like, okay, am I looking at this correctly? Is there another aspect of this I'm missing? There's different things that are coming up for people right now. But for right now, there's a lot of like reconciling old business. And what's going on is exactly what I just said, this process of integration. This is the Temperance card. And integration is about it's not about exorcising, as in like, casting out, exorcising those things that we don't like about ourselves. It's about finding out where they fit in. Okay, it's about, that's why I'm not somebody who talks about, I know the phrase light worker comes around a lot, but my only problem with that is that that's out of balance with the fact that your dark actually has a meaning to it too, and you don't want to discount that. An external feeling of which we're aware is healing. I mean, this is a time of healing, so this is just interesting so we are all in the space where we are trying to process and deal with the intensity, because we just had 2 eclipses, we had electromagnetic storms, we had the Devil's Comet coming through our skies, we had what else was the other thing? We had really tense things between Saturn and Mars. Mars has been in a lot of places. God, Mars was in Neptune. Oh my God, I thought I was just, I never, I'm like, I don't like feeling like that. Because then it's just like you're frustrated about all the stuff you don't know about, and frustrated about all of your emotions, and it's not, at least for me personally, it wasn't fun. But so there's this idea that we need to take some time out to heal. You have success here. You will succeed in what you're doing. But also remember that success card also has to do with often moving from milestone to milestone. And our life isn't just a series of milestones like, well, I accomplished this thing, let's check the box, now let's do the next thing. It's not, you don't want to live your life that way. You want to kind of be in the moment of where you're living your life. And the ultimate outcome card is stress. And the stress card says, this is like somebody trying to do all of these things and the monkey is about to pop the balloon. And that's what they're saying, and the meaning of the card is, it's really technically the 7 of Wands. So that's the idea of us viciously fighting and clinging to hang on to a particular schedule or a particular way of doing things and saying, no, I have to accomplish these things, because otherwise I don't feel good about myself if I haven't accomplished all this stuff, or if I haven't done it all by myself, or if I haven't, whatever it is, whatever the script is that's, where you could succeed, but you're telling yourself you have to do it a certain way. And this is saying, no, you need to look at it. And literally the meaning of the stress card is do something unimportant. Do something unimportant. It doesn't matter how important you think everything, do something unimportant, like whatever, because because when we're that stressed, it's when we're trying to control too many things, and you get into a 10 of Wands situation where you have the person trying to carry it all on their back. That's not really the way we're meant to do it. We've been all very isolated from each other, and I feel like now this is more about working towards how we can all work together rather than work against each other or fight with each other all the time. There's a lot of polarity in a lot of areas between masculine and feminine. Politically, there's a lot of polarity. We've got a lot of wars going on. There's a lot of stuff going on that has us kind of like an us against them situation. And the point is just like, no, like take time to integrate, take time. And any upsets that you may have had, don't sit there and say, that was terrible. Because a lot of times when past hurts and things or wounds are brought up, we either want to blame somebody else or then we start blaming and hating on ourselves. And either way, you want to release that. One ritual that I've done, and I know Patricia Weston often recommends this too on her channel, is sometimes if I wake up and I'm like, oh, okay, the theme today is isolation, or the theme today is betrayal, like I'll have dreams and stuff and it'll put me in this emotional space, and I'll say, okay, so I would literally write out, I'm aware that I have things about betrayal. I'm aware that I have, that this is a trait that I have, but, that was then, and it's time to release all of that because it's not allowing me to move forward. It's not even relevant in the present. We're just assuming it's going to happen again because we're in that causal mindset, cause and effect. So, obviously, yes, we can listen. If we learn to listen to our inner voice, we will always have proper, what they call discrimination. We will always know what the right thing to do is in a particular situation. If we try to get the mind out of it and just listen to our inner voice. So I will do that. I will write it up, and I have a little tiny cauldron here in my room, and I just set fire to it. I usually put some kind of an oil on it. I have something called Trauma Life from Young Living, but there's other ones too that you can have about trauma release, and then I just burn it. And surprisingly, I actually feel a lot better afterwards. I mean, it doesn't solve everything because then the next day another issue will come up. So that's just a technique that people can use. and if they if they're feeling that way. But yeah, it's just kind of confronting and integrating things one at a time, or releasing in the same way that you would clean your house out. Release what doesn't fit, what doesn't work anymore. I have boxes of stuff downstairs that I'm going to donate and give away. What can be shared with other people? What's something you don't need anymore that somebody else can use? Or what just has outlived its usefulness, and you say, okay, well, this isn't going to be part of the equation anymore. Not in the same of saying this is a terrible thing and I'm going to exorcise. It was just, it served its purpose, whatever, or whether it was what we perceive as a good or a bad thing. So that's about all I have time for this morning, because I am doing just 30-minute things, although I'm 35 minutes right now, but that's okay. I am going to be doing these every morning, so do feel free to join me. If not, I am going to start moving these over to the Liminal Tarot channel at YouTube. I believe it is at Liminal Tarot 5130, called kind of as one word. It is the channel you could search for. And yes, and thank you for joining me. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining in with me this morning. And so everything will be available if you want to recap, and I'll be here tomorrow morning. So in the meantime, have a great day. Okay, you're welcome. Absolutely. So yes, enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully see you tomorrow.